Vlad opened the closet, pristinely empty, except for a perfectly clean business suit, for processes the only expensive thing in the house. Hung a shirt on the cracked shoulders, nodded to his reflection in the matte mirror on the closet door, tapped his finger on his forehead. Hey, you, Rostya. Morishka certainly didn't belong here in his dusty den. Vlad looked around. A typical bachelor's den, busy only with work and nothing else. Dusty corners, wallpaper peeling off in some places, a bare hook in place of the chandelier. Katerina took her mother's wedding present in the divorce. A desk piled high with papers. The kitchen's no better. A pile of unwashed dishes. A fridge full of rancid convenience foods. I'll have to clean up a little this weekend. Marishka won't say anything, won't even wrinkle her nose. An extra day spent with Daddy is more precious to her than anything else in the world. But it's kind of embarrassing on your own. Of course, when Vlad graduated from the academy, he dreamed of completely different pictures. Multi-million-dollar cases of oligarchs, the pressure of the prosecutor's office, and he, Vlad Khmelnytsky, calm and valiant, gives interviews to television. It didn't turn out that way. After a not very successful interrogation practice in the police, Vlad had nothing left but to go to the bureau, to work for someone else's image and someone else's fame, where he has been languishing for 5 years. As the youngest and most inexperienced, he was naturally shoved down on him all the routine, all the low-profile cases, where there was no chance to spin. Ambition was a thing of the past, and now Vlad was pulling the endless burden of an errand boy. Sometimes he was trusted to handle state cases under Article 48 or such unpromising processes as today's. In the kitchen, Vlad put the kettle on, threw a couple bags of brew into a mug, and fed the microwave a slice of frozen pizza. Food, not pleasure. Food just necessary to keep the process alive. And you almost forgot the days when Katya greeted him with the delicious aromas of borscht, cutlets, and dumplings. The kettle whistled. Vlad splashed boiling water into a mug, dragged a notebook from the hallway, pulled up a chair. Let's have a look. The first 4 pages of the notebook were occupied by a neatly organized table in 2 columns. In one, in the even handwriting of excellent students, written by surname. In the other, a strange list of catastrophes and cipher notes, against each surname 1 or 2 and rarely more. Shibayev Yuli Nikolaevich. Failure of the right engine of Flight Tu-154 NRVL G-142. Ambartsumyan Ashot Nagibovich. Domestic gas explosion. Komunarov Street 16. Lipetsk, Ja-12, P-24. Landslide near the resort village of Otik, Krasnodar region. Ja-63. Severtseva Anna Igorevna. Failure of onboard systems of Su-25, North Caucasus Military District. Training flight. Ja-2. Accident in the pumping system of the 4th workshop of Ural Kimosh. Settlement. Crossed out. Ja-4. P-250. Konstantin Maximovich Yakovlev. Traffic accident. Collision of a Yakarus with a heavy-duty trailer, Supermaz. Federal Highway, Ufa-Chelyabinsk. Ja-8. P-27. Fire in a metro car. St. Petersburg, Kiornaya Rechka Station. Electrocution of evacuees. G-12. P-29. Ignatiev Boris Stepanovich. Earthquake on Sakhalin. Epicenter 7 points in the area of Uglagorsk. G-89 P-300. At the left column of the table, next to each surname, there was a boldly written tick. It was obvious that they put them with pleasure from the accomplished work. Strangely enough, Vlad could not remember any of the disasters and emergencies listed in the left column, no matter how hard he tried. All of them were without dates, and some of them were shortened to 1 or 2 letters. Here, for example, was an airplane against Shibayev's surname. It says Tu-154 NRVL. What is it? Norilsk, Vladivostok? Or Novosibirsk, Vladivostok? Or even Novorossiysk, Vladimir? although Vladimir doesn't seem to have an airport. It's also unclear with Ikarus, the federal highway Ufa-Chelyabinsk. It's about 400 kilometers long, if not more. But the Gate P27 tag was easy for Vlad to decipher. G is probably victims. P is casualties. In major accidents, when the number of casualties is unknown, it's an approximation. Still, what kind of accidents are these? It was still possible not to hear about the accident in Ufa. It slipped through the regional news once or twice, and that's all. But the accident at the chemical plant, the media would spin it in such a way that one would wake up at night in a cold sweat. Vlad read on. Don't drink the water, Oleg Timorovich. Meltdown of the reactor core of the nuclear submarine PSKOV-SF at parking lot. Jo RJFIC accident. Collision of VAZ 2106, VAZ 2110, and MAZ 2110, 212th kilometer of Novosemperopolskoye Highway, Zhat 3, P7. Derailment. Damage to the canvas of the MO electric train, smeared. Sergeyev Posad, Zhat 2, P29. Zheleznyakova, Antonina Grigorievna. Collapse of a residential building, dilapidated foundation. Marshal Zhukova Avenue 7. Kramatorsk, G16 P17. Traffic accident. The accident of sewage treatment plants of the first stage, Ayoros, Bytkim Chemical Plant, Voznevo Settlement, Voronezh Region, Ja 8, P500. Groundwater breakthrough, Dalnyaya Mine, Sakalgol Association, Ja 12, P19. Solodovnikov Ivan Sergeyevich. Collision of a repair train and a freight train, Frolovo-Mikhailovka section, 140 kilometers from Volgograd, Zh19, P3. Fire at an oil well, Polarnaya Zorya Field, Derrick number 29, Zhich 214, P719. In total, there were 26 names on the list. When Vlad read the last one, he shuddered in surprise. He didn't believe it. He reread it again. Villanova Tatiana Andreevna. Against the surname of the recent victim was a whole list of disasters. Fire at a large ammunition depot somewhere in the Kurgan region. Collapse of an automobile tunnel on the Georgian military road. Death of an airliner at Yakutsk airport. Another accident with a tourist bus. An earthquake in Kamchatka. In the usual place to the left of the table, instead of a check mark, a pencil mark, small question mark, was barely visible. Below, someone started to write a new surname, but changed his mind. Only 2 letters could be read, a large R and an A. The rest was crossed out. That was the end of all the entries in the notebook. The rest of the pages were pristine. Vlad flipped the notebook over and only now discovered that the backside was thickly scribbled with another 12.5 pages. It was hard to make out the small and scrawled handwriting, but the first entry so captivated Vlad that he could not stop. Worked on Shibayev today. The target has a car, so this time it was quick and successful. Loosened the wheel mounts, cut the brake hose. Tomorrow morning he will go to the dacha after all. 180 kilometers. The next entry laconically noted, Shibayev worked out, and another line and lower. The cops thought the brakes were to blame. The car is so burned that it is almost impossible to conduct a quality examination. Today it was reported that the Tu-154 landed safely in Vladivostok. It was a report. No, more like Ivlev's diary. With each line, Vlad's eyebrows rose higher and higher. Got a hit on Embratsumian. Target is a pensioner. Sells at the market. Next, I rented a place next to Embratsumian. Got to talking. Tomorrow, I hope to make friends. Next, we work well together. When he needs to leave, he asks me to look after the goods. In the evening, he gave me some peaches and asked me to drink to our acquaintance. I could barely talk myself out of it. Today, I gave him a drink in return. A small pass and the same laconic note. Hambart Zumian's done his job. I sent a man to the market to ask where the Armenian with peaches was, saying they were very tasty. I want to buy some more. They answered that the Armenian will not be there anymore. He died yesterday. Mushroom poisoning. They confirmed it this evening. Botulism, severe form. At night they said everything was fine in Lipetsk. Shibayev, Ambartsumyan. Vlad opened the notebook first. Those are the first two names on the list. Vlad impatiently read on. His heart was pounding like crazy. A vapor protruded on his forehead. Why did he kill them all? Ivlev wrote in short, precise phrases, as if reporting to himself, sometimes straying into a confidential tone. Somewhere the entries were preceded by a date, sometimes just Tuesday, the next morning. The evening, the notebook clearly showed that Ivlev had killed not 2 or even 10 people. He is an employee of some deep-covered organization, which strangely calculates the connection between an unremarkable man and a terrible, devastating disaster. As long as the man is alive, disasters and accidents are inevitable. If he is destroyed, the catastrophe can be stopped. Vlad sipped long-cooled tea from his mug, grimaced, and spilled the rest into the sink. It turns out that the defendant is actually the real serial killer, even if he considers himself only an executioner, enforcing the sentence. Once in a while, the truth was plagued by doubts. Why won't they tell me how they calculate the targets? Why can't I know the truth? And if all this is a coincidence, a mere coincidence, then I am the most ordinary murderer. Lord, forgive me for my sin. After the 6th murderer, Ivlev filled a whole page with such reflections. A week later, he diligently recorded an overheard conversation between 2 specialists from the organization. Strange. But Ivlev never once called it even a shortened or abbreviation. Just organization, with a small letter, and that's all. Today I heard in the reception that Engel and Granger released proofs of their method of correlation of statistical models of Shevr, and that now it is easier to work. The probability of error is no more than 1 in 1,000. I don't know who those 2 are, but they're said to have won the Nobel. I'm sure they deserve it. That day, Ivlev learned some very scary things. It turns out that the organization is sometimes wrong. They're let down by some statistics. The last entry said, he went to Villanova. They're in a hurry. Nothing certain, but the target has to be eliminated. First one on the list in 2 days. I asked for a day to work on the target. They said no. We'll have to liquidate Dirty. Still no confirmation. And we can't wait any longer. Yeah, I hope this target isn't a mistake. Pushing the notebook away from him, Vlad tried to recall the neighbor's testimony. Sort of something like that, according to her. Ivlev shouted into the tube, "What was it like there?" Again? No, that's enough. Vlad rubbed his temples with his palms, squeezed his eyes shut. It turns out that the investigator didn't just kill an innocent man. He had killed an innocent man by mistake, without preventing the impending series of catastrophes. Shit. What the hell is going on in my head? I don't need to believe all this nonsense. I've got names, dates of death too. Who's stopping me from checking it out? Vlad opened the organizer, ran his fingers over the keys, but somehow we have it this time still on, and maybe a database of summaries of the city to raise. Yurka, the employee of the press service of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the city, Yuri Sechenov, was indeed on the spot. I understand everything. I'll do it if it's necessary. Just not now, okay? I've got a meeting in 15 minutes. You can mail me a letter, names, dates, and when I get back, I'll run it through the database and let you know. Thanks. I won't forget. Come on, what questions? Late at night, Vlad received a letter from Sechenov. All the victims on Davilinov's list died either as a result of accidents or simply died of their own accord. No criminality was smelled in any of the cases. The investigators had never even had any suspicions. Vlad flipped through the notebook once more, rereading some of the entries. Now he clearly saw in every condition of the diary almost clinical abnormality. God, Was it possible to think for a second that all this nonsense had any basis in fact? The defendant's just not right in the head? Maniacs often assign themselves extra victims, or even just enroll perfectly healthy people in the corpses. It happens. Vlad hummed, said aloud. And it's not so bad. If it can be proved that Ivlev is mentally ill, or at least was mentally ill at the time of Villanova's murder, then, well, it's too early to guess. The first thing Vlad decided to do tomorrow was to take the notebook to his institute friend, Inga Kostyukova. She now works at the Institute of Serbsky, will not refuse to help in memory of the past. Ingule will accurately determine the diagnosis. She's a pro in this business. Then it will be possible to build a defense around the black notebook. To appoint first a handwriting examination to prove the authorship, then a psychologist, psychiatrist, and then we'll see. Suddenly, the clients are from the same category of absolute psychopaths that heard voices ordering to remove this or that person, or acted allegedly on the orders of the director of the KGB. In the morning, Vlad called Inga, and she agreed to help. They agreed on the evening. At 12 o'clock, the investigator was waiting for him. Then he had to visit the isolation center and talk to Ivlev once again. After yesterday's heat, it had rained during the night, and the temperature had dropped. Vlad regretted that he hadn't brought a jacket, or a jacket. However, when the engine of the six warmed up, the car became warm and cozy. Vlad put his briefcase on the neighboring seat and turned on the radio. From the yard he drove out to the hoarse voice of a northerner, played radio chanson. 3 blocks before the detention center, at the very moment when Vlad stood at the last traffic light, the speaker suddenly cut off the song. A disturbing newscast splash screen sounded. The announcer's voice burst into the cabin like a taiga snowstorm. We interrupt our program. This is a breaking news bulletin. As it has just become known, in the Kurgan region is burning ammunition depot long storage near the village of Sipayeva. Observers can hear explosions, glowing debris flying in a radius of more than 1.5 kilometers. Authorities in the Kurgan region have decided to evacuate several dozen residential houses adjacent to the dangerous territory. There have been no official reports of deaths or injuries, but according to unverified reports, 12 people, the guard of the inner perimeter, the head of the guardhouse, and 3 people from the maintenance staff are missing. Several local residents have already been hospitalized with extensive skin burns. Soldiers from military units stationed nearby have started extinguishing the fire. By 18 o'clock, explosion technicians from the Kurgan region's FSSB are expected to arrive. Vlad hit the brakes with force. From behind, the protesters honked. A brand new 10 roared past. It was this wreck that first stood against the Villanova surname. Not believing himself, Vlad pulled a notebook out of his briefcase, looked through the table again. Villanova Tatiana Andreevna. Fire at a large ammunition depot in the settlement. Crossed out Kurgan region. G12-1, P38. It turns out that the 12 that are now missing are already dead, and one more person will die in the extinguishing? Vlad turned off the receiver, tossed the notebook back on the seat, and thought, God willing, if Ivlev was really crazy. In the detention center, Vlad was met with a completely different greeting than yesterday. The lieutenant jumped up startled at his appearance. I'm sorry. Investigator Radimov isn't here right now. He'll be here in an hour and a half. He asked me to give you this. It turned out to be a medical examiner's report. Investigator Ivlev committed suicide at approximately 4:15 a.m. last night. Suicide by hanging, by all accounts. Signed, sealed. Having promised that he would come by the end of the day, Vlad was about to leave on the threshold and caught the uncertain, slightly frightened look of the duty officer. Shuddering, he quickly averted his eyes. It is almost impossible to hang yourself in the isolation center. Everything is taken away from the detainees, including shoelaces and belts, and in the cell, there are not even sheets that can be torn into strips to make a rope. Vlad knew this, as well as the lieutenant. During the night, Ivleva was taken out. By whom? It didn't matter now. At home, Vlad turned on the TV and almost dropped the remote control. A brightly painted presenter was broadcasting against the background of a map of the Caucasus with a large pulsating dot in the middle. The collapse of the tunnel vaults was caused by a local karst earthquake. According to the North Caucasus Ministry of Emergency Situations, about 7 million tons of soil. It is still difficult to determine if there are any people inside the collapsed tunnel people, although some witnesses claim to have seen a convoy of heavy-duty trailers traveling along the road toward the tunnel just before the collapse. The notebook nonchalantly confirmed. Villanova Tatiana Andreevna. Collapse of the automobile tunnel on the military Georgian road, ZH-17P2. The second disaster on the list. Vlad collapsed in his chairs. If the black notebook was to be believed, several more emergencies should happen soon. The death of an airliner, a traffic accident, an earthquake in Kamchatka. And that's just on Villanova. How many more? God, if they know, why don't they stop it? Don't want to or can't. All night and all the next day, having asked Arkady Naumovich to leave, Vlad spent the whole night and the whole next day in front of the TV. Unshaven, with inflamed eyes, he switched channels with a shudder. Nothing happened until evening. At 7 o'clock, succumbing to endless fatigue, Vlad dozed off in his chair. He never realized if he had slept for at least an hour. Through the dream came the words, "Major catastrophe." Vlad shuddered, woke up, turned up the volume on the remote. On the screen, an airplane was burning in the night. Fire brigades were bustling around. An airliner with 183 passengers had crashed on landing at Yakutsk airport. Almost all of them died. Only 7 rescuers were able to get them out of the fiery chaos. Over the weekend, Vlad sat almost motionless, stuck to the TV, clutching the remote control and the unfortunate notebook with sweaty, trembling hands. And the disasters came one after another. Exactly as described in the notebook, only the 5th Russian tanker hit the rocks off the coast of Japan, not specified in the list. But then there was a 6th, and a 7th, and a 10th. The list ended long ago, and the disasters kept happening. Almost unconsciously, Vlad repeated to himself, "Find him! Find him! Please find him!" Now he could only dream that an organization unknown to him would finally identify the right person and eliminate him. His own thoughts at times frightened Vlad. How is it that he, a lawyer, a lawman, is ready to greet a murder with applause? It must be the way he went mad. He did not go to the telephone, and after particularly insistent calls, he turned it off. Never left the house, ate almost nothing, only sat and stared at the screen with reddened eyes in the veins of burst vessels. Television became the purpose of his existence. And then on the 3rd day, at night, Vlad almost didn't sleep, tossing sideways and sideways, imagining all the new disasters. In the morning, he jumped up an hour before the beginning of the TV broadcast, hung around the apartment from corner to corner, waiting for the first news program. When it started, Vlad greedily fixed his gaze on the screen, expecting and at the same time fearing new catastrophes. But nothing happened during the morning. He couldn't believe it. Had they really found it? All the first half of the day he habitually sat in front of the screen. But again, nothing. Everything was quiet in the country. Nothing was falling from the sky. Nothing was burning or exploding. Vlad slowly began to come to his senses, to pull himself out of the 3-day nightmare. God, at last. So they found an unremarkable man who had given his probably useless life to stop this horrible merry-go-round of accidents and disasters. Vlad got up from his chair and pulled himself up. Still gingerly looking at the screen, for the first time in 3 days, he ate a tasty meal in the refrigerator. But there was nothing in the fridge. He had to cook something quick from long half-finished products. But did it matter? Vlad shaved, put on a fresh shirt, hesitated a little, and pulled a business suit out of the closet. It was okay for today. Vlad decided to leave early, in the afternoon, to pick up Mariska. and he promised her something interesting. He lied, of course. He didn't have anything like that. But if he promised, he should buy it. Before leaving, Vlad opened the window to let the air out. He moved the boxes of books that he had never bothered to sort through in the 2 years since the divorce to a corner. He picked up his briefcase and went out. Behind him, the call light on his cell phone blinked alarmingly. The call had been disconnected. Everything went smoothly in the office. The chief even praised for a clear report on Ivlev. As it turned out, the unknown Fund of Democracy and Justice had transferred the money and the Bureau had made some profit because of the whole story. Vlad was even given a small bonus and, taking advantage of Arkady Naumovich's good mood, he asked to leave early. The gift lay on the back seat, beautifully wrapped in shiny foil, tied with a ribbon. A smart knitted scarf, with the image of Mariska's favorite hobbit, Frodo Vlad, had bought in the children's world an hour ago. He should like it. And practical. September is coming to an end, fall is in full swing, and winter is just around the corner. 2 years ago, when he and Katerina divorced, Vlad bargained for 1 week a month to spend with his daughter. The wife, now ex-wife, surprisingly, quickly agreed. With the divorce, she stood firm. I'm tired of waiting for you to succeed. Tired. I want to live normally. And here, for some reason, did not resist. In his heart, Vlad hoped that it was not because of the free week to spend with. Well, she had someone there. But because Mariska really loved her father a little more. Katerina probably didn't care, though. And so it went. Mariska alternated between living with her father and her mother. And neither he nor his daughter can't get used to the fact that she is no longer Khmelnitskaya, but Romazanova. Mariska now and then complains. Teachers have to call her 2 or 3 times. But the soul does not lie to the new name. The radio, as if it had declared a moratorium on bad news today, was playing light dance tunes. Vlad, sprawled in his chair, easily twirled the steering wheel, whistling to the beat of the music. The 4 o'clock news passed unnoticed. No alarming news or disasters. At the end, the newscaster announced joyfully, "Today the Puppet Musical Theater opened after renovation." The main director of the theater said in an interview with our program, Vlad thought that it would be necessary to take Mariska to some performance. In principle, if you try to fulfill everything that he promised his daughter recently, then a month of endless trips will not be enough. Well, one had to start somewhere. At the school door, Vlad was met by crying teachers and the principal outwardly collected, but with a confused face. "Vladislav Igorevich, calm down. We have bad news." "What happened?" "We've been trying to call you since morning. No one picked up the phone. And what's the matter?" "Marina was hit by a car this morning, almost at the front door." Vlad felt the ground beneath his feet, just so firm and solid, suddenly plummeted downwards. "What? What kind of car?" "We didn't get a good look at it. It was covered in mud, some kind of foreign car." Clenching his fist tightly to the point of pain, Vlad exhaled, shook his head. "All right, we'll figure it out afterward." Where was Marinka taken? To what hospital? The director looked at Vlad strangely and said hoarsely, "You don't understand. Marina's gone."